I sit in my corner office on the 42nd floor of this Chicago skyscraper, watching the city sprawl beneath me like a chessboard I have finally learned to master. The mahogany desk holds my latest acquisition papers, but my attention fixes on the phone buzzing with a number I blocked 17 years ago. Oregon area code. My hand hovers over the device as memories flood back like poison in my veins. When I finally answer, my mother's voice cracks through the speaker, unfamiliar in its desperation. "Marlon, we need you. Your brother. He is dying." The irony tastes bitter. The same brother who once painted me as his abuser now needs the monster he created. But this call was not about forgiveness. It was about justice, 17 years in the making. Before I tell you how my own family destroyed my childhood and how I built my empire from nothing, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. Hit that like button if you have ever been betrayed by someone you trusted most. And make sure to subscribe because this story will show you exactly how karma works when you wait long enough. Now let me take you back to where it all started. Portland, Oregon in 2008 was the kind of place where everyone knew your business before you did. Our split-level house on Maple Street sat in a neighborhood where kids still played until the streetlights came on, and parents actually knew each other's names. I was 15, sharing bunk beds with my twin brother Austin in a room that smelled like soccer cleats and teenage ambition. While I captained our high school soccer team and maintained a 4.0 GPA with dreams of Stanford dancing in my head, Austin had perfected the art of skating by on charm and lies. Our parents, Robert and Linda, represented the American dream in action. Dad balanced books for a local accounting firm while Mom shaped young minds at Roosevelt Elementary. They believed in hard work, honesty, and the power of second chances. Perhaps too much in the power of second chances. Every morning, Mom would pack our lunches with handwritten notes, and Dad would drive us to school in his reliable Honda Civic dispensing life advice between traffic lights. The differences between Austin and me were stark as black and white photographs. Where I thrived on structure and achievement, Austin excelled at manipulation and excuse-making. When he forgot homework, I would slip him mine to copy. When he broke Mom's favorite vase playing indoor football, I claimed responsibility to spare him punishment. This pattern of protection had woven itself so deeply into our family dynamic that everyone accepted it as natural. The responsible twin cleaning up after the troubled one. But Austin's manipulative nature was evolving into something darker. It started small, almost unnoticeable. He would bump into furniture and claim I pushed him. He would arrive at dinner with mysterious scratches, spinning elaborate tales about how I had caused them during innocent wrestling matches. Initially, our parents dismissed these incidents as typical sibling rivalry. Boys will be boys, they reasoned. Twins especially could be competitive. The first serious incident occurred on a Tuesday evening in October. Austin came running downstairs, blood streaming from a gash on his shin, tears flowing dramatically down his cheeks. He claimed I had pushed him into the sharp corner of our wooden desk during an argument about borrowed video games. The wound required 6 stitches and a tetanus shot. I protested my innocence, explaining that Austin had been alone in our room for 20 minutes before the incident, but my words fell on deaf ears. The physical evidence spoke louder than my denials. That night, as Austin slept peacefully in the bottom bunk with his bandaged leg propped on pillows, I stared at the ceiling, wondering how someone could hurt themselves just to hurt me. The thought seemed impossible then, too calculated and cruel for a 15-year-old mind to conceive. I convinced myself it had been an accident, that Austin was genuinely confused about what happened. This naive optimism would prove to be my downfall. The incidents escalated with surgical precision. Austin learned to time his accidents perfectly, ensuring witnesses would find him injured and me nearby. He discovered that bruises could be manufactured by punching walls when no one was looking. He mastered the art of recording my voice during moments of frustration, capturing angry words without context that painted me as an aggressor. Each piece of fabricated evidence built upon the last, creating a narrative so compelling that even I sometimes questioned my own memories. The manipulation reached its crescendo during Thanksgiving weekend of 2008. Austin had been planning what he would later call his grand finale for weeks, studying our family's routines like a predator stalking prey. He chose the morning of November 28th when Mom was preparing the turkey and Dad was watching football, their attention divided and their guard down. Austin positioned himself at the top of our carpeted staircase, clutching the wooden railing with white knuckles. He had practiced this moment in his mind, calculating angles and impact points to maximize damage while minimizing the risk of permanent injury. With the cold precision of a method actor, he released his grip and tumbled down 15 steps, his body striking each wooden edge with sickening thuds. The screams that followed will haunt me forever. Not from pain, though Austin's injuries were genuine, but from the raw terror in my parents' voices as they discovered their son crumpled at the bottom of the stairs. Broken ribs, severe concussion, internal bleeding that required immediate surgery. As paramedics loaded Austin onto a stretcher, his eyes met mine through his oxygen mask. Even through his pain medication haze, I saw the satisfied glint of a plan executed flawlessly. At the hospital, Austin delivered an Oscar-worthy performance to doctors, nurses, and the police officer who responded to reports of domestic violence. Between labored breaths and genuine tears of pain, he spun his tale of escalating abuse. He described months of beatings, threats, and intimidation. He showed them photographs of previous injuries stored on his phone, a digital portfolio of self-inflicted wounds and manufactured evidence. He played audio recordings of my voice, raised in anger, carefully edited to remove context and create the impression of violent threats. The medical team found Austin's story compelling because his injuries were real and severe. The police officer nodded sympathetically as Austin described living in fear of his violent twin brother. Hospital social workers were called in to assess the situation and determine if Child Protective Services needed to intervene. Meanwhile, I sat in a plastic chair in the waiting room watching my family's life implode through a window of lies I could not shatter. When investigators questioned me, every word I spoke seemed to confirm their suspicions. My confusion appeared to be deflection. My protests sounded like the desperate lies of an abuser caught in the act. The more frantically I tried to explain Austin's pattern of manipulation, the more unstable and dangerous I appeared. Physical evidence trumped character witnesses. Medical reports outweighed testimonials from teachers and coaches who knew me as a responsible, caring student. The family intervention took place in our living room on December 10, 2008. Extended relatives, family, friends, a social worker, and a therapist all gathered to address what they believed was a severe case of sibling abuse. Austin, still wearing his hospital wristband and moving gingerly due to his healing ribs, presented his case with the skill of a seasoned prosecutor. He showed bruise photographs, played audio recordings, and recounted incidents with vivid detail that made even me question my own memories. My character witnesses seemed pathetic in comparison. Teachers who described me as helpful and kind were dismissed as being fooled by my public persona. Coaches who praised my leadership and sportsmanship were told that many abusers excel at maintaining favorable public images. Even my own parents, who had watched me grow up with loving attention, began to see my past behavior through the distorted lens of Austin's accusations. The decision was unanimous, except for my vote. I had to leave home immediately. Not next week or next month, but that very evening. Child Protective Services recommended immediate separation to ensure Austin's safety and my opportunity for rehabilitation through professional counseling. The family agreed that my continued presence posed an unacceptable risk to everyone's well-being. I packed a single suitcase with trembling hands, while Austin watched from his bed, no longer bothering to hide his satisfaction. 17 years of shared memories, dreams, and brotherhood reduced to whatever belongings could fit in one bag. My soccer trophies stayed behind. My acceptance letters from colleges that had been recruiting me remained in my desk drawer. My entire identity as the responsible twin crumbled into dust. As I walked toward the front door, carrying everything I had left in the world, my parents delivered their final verdict. Mom could not even look at me as she spoke through tears. Do not contact us until you get professional help and can admit what you have done. Dad's words cut deeper. We failed to protect Austin from you for too long. Behind them, barely visible in the hallway shadows, Austin allowed himself one final smirk of triumph. The door closed behind me on December 15, 2008, with the sound of my childhood ending forever. Marcus Williams lived in a neighborhood where survival was not guaranteed, and trust was earned through actions rather than words. When I showed up at his door with my suitcase and $127 in my wallet, his mother Patricia took one look at my face and knew exactly what betrayal looked like. She had seen it before in her own life, and she recognized the particular devastation that comes from family turning against you. Patricia Williams opened her home to me without hesitation or conditions. Her small house in North Portland was already crowded with Marcus, his younger sister Jasmine, and Patricia's elderly mother who lived in the converted garage. Adding another teenager to their limited space and tighter budget should have been impossible, but Patricia understood something my biological family had forgotten. Sometimes strangers become family by choice rather than blood. The transition was brutal but necessary. I enrolled at Jefferson High School for my final semester, working 30 hours per week at Fletcher's grocery store to contribute to household expenses. My grades slipped from perfect A's to mostly B's, but Patricia reminded me that survival was more important than perfection. She taught me to cook simple meals, balance a checkbook, and navigate the city bus system. Most importantly, she showed me that love could exist without conditions or manipulation. Marcus became the brother Austin never was. Where Austin had been competitive and deceptive, Marcus was supportive and honest. He helped me fill out college applications in secret, using the Williams family address, since I had no permanent home of my own. When I worried about financing college without family support, Marcus researched scholarship opportunities and helped me craft essays that turned my tragedy into evidence of resilience. The University of Washington offered me a full academic scholarship with additional funding for students from disadvantaged backgrounds. The irony was not lost on me that being disowned had actually improved my financial aid eligibility. I graduated from Jefferson High School in June 2009, working right up until graduation day to save money for college expenses not covered by scholarships. College in Seattle represented freedom from my past and opportunity to build something new. I majored in finance and entrepreneurship, working multiple jobs to support myself and send small amounts back to Patricia, who refused my money but appreciated the gesture. I tutored struggling business students, served tables at an upscale restaurant near campus, and gave campus tours to prospective students and their families. During my junior year, I started a small business delivering food from local restaurants to students who were too busy studying to leave their dorms. The service grew from my bicycle and backpack to a small fleet of delivery drivers covering the entire university district. By graduation in 2013, I was earning more from my business than from my part-time jobs combined. My first job after college was with Morrison Investment Group, a Seattle-based firm specializing in emerging technology companies. I worked 100-hour weeks, studied market trends obsessively, and built relationships with entrepreneurs who were creating the next generation of digital innovations. My colleagues saw ambition, but I knew the truth. I was running from the memory of being called a monster by people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. By 2016, I had saved enough money to make my first independent investment in a ride-sharing application that was expanding beyond major cities. The company went public 18 months later, turning my $20,000 investment into nearly $500,000. Success bred more success, as I developed a reputation for identifying profitable opportunities before they became obvious to larger investment firms. In 2018, I left Morrison to start my own investment company focusing on technology startups founded by entrepreneurs who, like me, had overcome significant personal obstacles. My firm Resilience Capital managed $50 million in assets by 2020 and over $500 million by 2022. Business magazines featured my success story, though I never mentioned the family that had discarded me like garbage. I purchased a penthouse apartment in downtown Chicago, drove luxury cars, and wore custom suits, but material success felt hollow without people who genuinely cared about my happiness rather than my bank account. I maintained contact with Patricia and Marcus, who celebrated my achievements without trying to claim credit or ask for favors. They remained my real family, while my biological family remained blocked from my phone and forgotten from my thoughts. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon in March 2025, 17 years after I walked out of my childhood home forever. I was reviewing quarterly reports when my assistant informed me that someone claiming to be my mother was calling from Oregon. My finger hesitated over the decline button, but curiosity won over caution. I had not heard Linda's voice since that December night when she told me never to contact them again. Marlon. Her voice was smaller than I remembered, fragile and desperate in a way that immediately put me on guard. I know you have every right to hang up on me, but please. We need your help. Austin is dying. The words hit me like physical blows. not because I felt sudden grief for my estranged brother, but because of the cruel irony embedded in her request. The same people who had chosen to believe lies over truth now needed help from the son they had thrown away. The same brother who had destroyed my childhood with calculated deception was now facing his own mortality. Linda explained that Austin had developed terminal liver cancer likely caused by decades of alcohol and drug abuse that began shortly after I left home. The medical bills were astronomical, far beyond what their modest savings and insurance could cover. Robert had been forced to mortgage their house and liquidate his retirement accounts. They were facing bankruptcy and homelessness, while watching their remaining son die slowly and painfully. "He asked for you specifically," Linda whispered through tears. "He said you were the only one successful enough to afford the treatment he needs," he said. "He said he has things he needs to tell you." I listened without speaking, absorbing information, while my emotions remained carefully controlled. 17 years of therapy success and distance had taught me to separate feeling from thinking when making important decisions. This moment required all of those hard-earned skills. After hanging up, I hired a private investigator to verify everything Linda had told me and discover what she had not. The report arrived within a week, painting a picture of the Williams family that was both tragic and predictable. Austin's descent into addiction had begun in high school shortly after my departure. Without his favorite target for manipulation, he had turned to alcohol and drugs to fill the void left by his loss of power and control. Multiple arrests for driving under the influence, petty theft, and drug possession dotted Austin's adult record. He had been in and out of rehabilitation programs, halfway houses, and jail cells for over a decade. The investigator also uncovered something far more significant, a recording made by Austin's former girlfriend during a drug overdose scare in 2020. In the recording, Austin confessed everything. The self-inflicted injuries, the manufactured evidence, the elaborate lies that destroyed our family. His girlfriend had recorded him during what she thought might be his final moments, wanting to preserve his confession for reasons she could not explain. She had kept the recording for 5 years, unsure what to do with information that could devastate a family that had already suffered so much loss. My parents had learned the truth from Austin himself during a moment of clarity in 2021, but pride and shame had prevented them from reaching out to me. They had spent 4 years living with the knowledge that they had destroyed their relationship with their innocent son while enabling their guilty one. Only Austin's terminal diagnosis had finally overcome their reluctance to face the consequences of their choices. I flew to Portland on a gray Thursday morning, renting a car at the airport and driving through neighborhoods that held 17 years' worth of suppressed memories. The hospital smelled exactly like I remembered from Austin's previous emergencies, that mixture of disinfectant and despair that seems to permeate every medical facility. Austin was barely recognizable in his hospital bed, his body ravaged by cancer and decades of substance abuse. The cocky teenager who had once smirked at my exile had become a skeletal man whose eyes held nothing but regret and pain. When he saw me enter his room, tears began flowing down his hollow cheeks before he could speak. "Marlon," he whispered, his voice hoarse from chemotherapy and guilt, "I am so sorry. I destroyed everything. I destroyed us." My parents sat in chairs beside his bed, looking older and smaller than people in their early 60s should look. Years of stress, guilt, and grief had aged them prematurely. They watched our reunion with expressions of hope and terror, unsure whether I had come to offer forgiveness or deliver final judgment. "Tell them," I said quietly, looking directly into Austin's eyes. "Tell them exactly what you did and why you did it." Austin's confession took nearly an hour, interrupted by coughing fits and moments when emotion overwhelmed his ability to speak. He detailed every lie, every self-inflicted injury, every calculated manipulation that had led to my exile. He explained his motivations with brutal honesty: jealousy of my success, resentment of the attention my achievements brought, and a deep-seated need to control our family dynamic by positioning himself as the victim. My parents listened in horrified silence as their remaining son systematically destroyed every assumption they had built their lives around for the past 17 years. The responsible twin had always been responsible. The troubled twin had been more troubled than they could have imagined. When Austin finished speaking, the room fell silent, except for the steady beeping of medical monitors and the sound of three people breathing through the wreckage of a family that could never be fully repaired. "I will pay for your treatment," I told Austin, my voice steady and businesslike. "But there are conditions." I outlined my terms with the precision of a contract negotiation. Austin would enter the best rehabilitation program available after his cancer treatment, assuming he survived. My parents would write letters of apology to every person they had told about my alleged abuse, including teachers, relatives, and family friends. They would donate their time to organizations that help children who had been falsely accused of crimes. Most importantly, they would publicly acknowledge the truth about what happened in our family, regardless of how it reflected on their judgment as parents. "I spent 17 years proving I was not the monster you said I was," I told them. "Now you can spend whatever time you have left proving you understand the difference between truth and lies." Austin survived his cancer treatment, though he will never fully recover his health. My parents have slowly begun rebuilding their relationship with me, though trust remains fragile and conditional. Family dinners are stilted affairs where we carefully avoid topics that might resurrect old pain. We are learning to be polite strangers who share genetic material and complicated history. The most important lesson I learned is that forgiveness does not require forgetting. I can choose to move forward without carrying hatred, but I will never again assume that family relationships are immune to betrayal. The people who hurt us most are often the ones who know exactly which wounds will cause the deepest damage. Patricia Williams, who opened her home to a desperate teenager with nowhere else to go, taught me that families can be chosen as well as inherited. The love she gave me without conditions or expectations proved more powerful than the conditional love I lost when my biological family chose lies over truth. Success became meaningful only when I learned to measure it by my ability to help others rather than by my power to punish those who had wronged me. The best revenge was not my wealth or achievements, but becoming the man my parents should have believed in from the beginning. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones who teach us our greatest strengths. What would you do if your own family betrayed you the way mine betrayed me? Have you ever had to choose between forgiveness and justice when someone who hurt you desperately needed your help? Let me know in the comments below what you think about Austin's actions and whether my parents deserved a second chance. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who might need to hear that they can overcome even the deepest betrayals. Subscribe for more real stories about resilience, redemption, and the complicated nature of family relationships. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your past does not have to define your future. Keep building the life you deserve, no matter who doubts your ability to succeed.